Charles Manson and the Manson family. Charles Manson was born on November 12, 1932 in Cincinnati, Ohio. He had 3 children, Charles Manson Jr., Valentine Michael Manson, and Charles Luther Manson. Charles Manson Jr. committed suicide in 1993 because he couldn't live down who his father was. Kathleen Maddox, Charles Manson's mother, was a 16-year-old alcoholic and prostitute. At age 12, she placed Manson in an all-boys school. Manson tried to return home to his mother but was rejected time and time again. After that, he lived life on the streets and committed petty crimes. Charles Manson's mother also tried to sell him to a waitress who couldn't bear children, all for a pitcher of beer. Charles Manson claimed to be the reincarnation of Jesus. He also believed in Armageddon. He misinterpreted the famous Beatles song Helter Skelter as a message indicating violence. Around the age of 21, he married 17-year-old Rosalie Jean Willis, and the pair had Charles Manson Jr. Later, he married prostitute Leona Ray Stevens, and the pair had Charles Luther Manson. While in prison, around the age of 80, he had a relationship with 26-year-old Afton Burton. They had a marriage license but never ended up using it, so it expired in 2015. Burton had created many websites to free Manson. She also moved from Chicago to California to be closer with Manson. In the top photo on the right, you can see that Manson is in handcuffs but has no regard for it and seems cocky almost. Manson was denied parole 12 times. Him, along with many of the other cult followers, were supposed to receive the death penalty. However, California had disbanded the penalty a year later, so they ended up getting life in prison instead. Manson had been in jail a handful of times before the cult, and he never understood that illegal behavior would result in imprisonment. He was charged with 9 counts of murder and 1 count of conspiracy to murder. His victims include 9 killed by proxy, 1 attempted murder, 2 rapes, and 4 arsons. About the Manson family. In order to be recruited, you had to have similar beliefs and backgrounds to Manson. You also had to be willing to do whatever Manson had ordered you to do. Followers eventually adapted Manson's beliefs of sex, drugs, racism, and murder. He used the hippie lifestyle to get young women into joining his cult. His followers were brainwashed with addictive drugs, group sex, and religious lectures. His members often included runaways that were off on the streets. This is where he would collect them, charm them with his flattery, and then break them down emotionally. The goal of the cult was to provoke Helter Skelter, an apocalyptic race war. They lived with Beach Boy Dennis Wilson for a while until Wilson became aware of Manson's violent and volatile behavior. Then he kicked them out. After Manson and his cult were kicked out of Wilson's home, they quickly stumbled across the isolated movie ranch, Spawn Ranch. It was a set for many movies and TV shows. The cult ended because the majority of Manson's followers, including himself, were arrested, and many received life in prison. The murders were an ultimate act of loyalty and reinforcement. All the members were happy to be there all the time, during and not during the murders. Every member had drug problems and were usually high or on psychedelic drugs when the murders would take place. The members were gullible, had a low tolerance for the uncertainty, and didn't ask Manson questions. They blindly did what was told them, even if they didn't fully understand why. Manson made sure his followers found him to be an all-powerful Mahesa-type figure. He was also the father figure to all his members. Who is involved? The youngest member was Diana Lake, who was 14 years old. Then we have Leslie Van Houten, who was 19 years old. She is the youngest person involved in the LaBianca murders. Charles Tex Watson was an athlete and honor student from Texas. He was considered to be Charles Manson's right-hand man. Patricia Krenwinkel was 21 years old, and she wrote Death to Pigs and Helter Skelter in Blood in the LaBianca home. Susan Sadie Atkins was a 21-year-old who wrote Pig on Tate's door. She had died from brain cancer in prison. Linda Casbian was 20 years old. She joined the cult after 2 failed marriages and the birth of her daughter. She was with the family during the LaBianca murders, but was told to wait outside. When she learned what happened inside, she contacted a prosecutor and was granted immunity if she would testify against Charles Manson and their cult. The cult killed 5 people in one day at the Tate household, including Sharon Tate, who was a 26-year-old actress and was pregnant with a baby boy, Wojciech Frogowski, who was a 32-year-old Polish actor, Abigail Forger, who was 26 years old. She was the heiress to the Forger's coffee fortune. Jay Sebring was a 35-year-old celebrity hairdresser. Stephen Parent happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. He was 18 years old and went to go visit the groundskeeper, William Garton, and he was shot to death at the front gate. Then, at a separate date, we have Lena LaBianca and his wife, Rosemary. The original target for Sharon Tate's murder was the former owner of her property, Terry Melcher. Melcher was a producer who declined to sign aspiring singer Charles Manson to a contract. Manson met Melcher through Beach Boy Dennis Wilson. Dennis Wilson met Manson while Wilson was picking up many of Manson's family members while they were hitchhiking. The members of the cult were told to kill the victims as gruesomely as possible. They were also told to frame the Black Panthers. This is why words such as pig were written on the walls. Pig was what the Black Panthers would call the cops. Most of the members of the Manson family cult were young and naive, which is why Manson had such an easy way of controlling them. The members. Even in jail, a few members managed to stay loyal to Manson. Lynette Squeaky Frome got a life sentence for attempted assassination of President Gerald Ford. She was still loyal to Manson, and when she realized he was in jail, she escaped from her own prison to try and save him. She got caught after 40 hours, and she was 2 miles away from the prison. An additional 5 years was added to her sentence, and she was released in August 2009 and served nearly 34 years. 17 days after Squeaky's initial assassination attempt on President Ford, 45-year-old Sarah Moore fired a revolver at him. Moore was a former informant for the FBI. She had a history of mental illness and was arrested at scene and convicted for life. Manson told his followers that the murders were to provoke a race war, and since most of his members were gullible, had a low tolerance for the uncertainty, and didn't ask questions, they blindly did as they were told. Thank you for listening.